Rightio, we are back. Welcome. Episode 3 of the 2025 edition of Hammers Happy Hour. Before I start, off the top, I've been told to mention our merch is 50% off, I think, everything that we've ever sold, ever made, ever. I think if you're a Patreon or patron, you can get it straight away. Otherwise, it'll be there on Monday, I think it is, Jaiden. But if not, it'll all have been sold out. So if you're a Patreon, get on there, or patron now, 50% off everything we've ever made. Now, into the stuff. We've had my old man talk about medicinal cannabis. We've had Cal Cromer from the Southern River Band come in this week. We're just mixing things up a little bit. We've been connected through a friend of mine into Chris is a ex-retired policeman of 15 years. Hodgie, welcome.
Thank you, Hammer. Very good to be here, mate.
Sensational. Thank you for coming in. Now, mate, we've got heaps of questions to ask. We're going to run through your whole journey as a police officer. Yep. There's nothing off limits, I hope. And if there is, you can flag it and we can not talk about that. But firstly, mate, how are you? How's your day? How's it going?
No, going really well, mate. Just normal business day for me. And
a bit nervous coming in here today, were you?
Yeah. If anyone that knows me knows I'm well out of my comfort zone. I spent almost 15 years in police, avoiding every camera I possibly could, and did a pretty good job. And
perfect.
Here I am.
And here we are. Brilliant. Yeah. So, mate, we'll take it back to the start. You're how old are you when you? So you said 15 years in policing. How did that start? When did it start? How's the process of you getting into police work?
Yeah, look, just under 15 years. I think I did 14 years in about 9 months or something along that lines. Mate, I actually, I always wanted to be a copper. So as a kid, that's all I ever wanted to do. So,
What was that? What was the inspiration behind that?
No idea. Just had no idea. Had no desire to go to university or anything like that. Had one of my dad's mates was a pretty experienced copper, and I used to hear his stories and thought, that sounds all right. And then I went through school, and yeah, like I said, I had no interest in going to uni. You don't have to go to uni to be a copper, but I actually grew up in Adelaide. I moved over to WA and threw the hat in the ring, and next minute I was in and away to the academy. So that was in about 2005, and managed to squeeze out another 14 and a bit years after that.
Shit. So you didn't care for university; it was always going to be police. Did that mean school sort of just threw by the wayside a little bit, or did you? Yeah. Would you have been a policeman's nightmare as a young fella running around, or were you?
I was probably a teacher's nightmare.
Yeah.
And but no, it's just something. I don't know how to explain it really. I think I just had it in me. Yeah. I think a lot of coppers would say that, that you just, it was just driven, and I was just blinkers on, and that's all I ever wanted to do, and it's all I ever really considered. Hindsight, I joined pretty young.
How old were you when you joined?
Oh, about 22.
Yeah.
So, young. The 22-year-old version of me, very different to the one now. And hindsight, I wish I'd have done something maybe before, like had an opportunity to do a trade, didn't. And then, joined young and yeah.
What's that look like? You join is it an academy? What's the joining process? From what I don't know a whole heap, and that's why we've got you on, but I've heard that you have to run like a 5 or a 6 beep test or something, and that all these fat blokes can do 5 push-ups and they're in. What's the process to join the coppers?
No, I think that's it. You got to hop over a fence. No, you got to do a few little medical type things. It's changed a lot. I think when I got in, you had to do the beep test. I think you had to get to about level 8 or something like that. I could be wrong, but you could basically walk that.
8's a brisk walk.
And I was reasonably fit back then.
Yep.
I probably couldn't get to level 6 now, but so that part of it, and then it just like a normal interview, and then you're in, and I can't remember how long you actually do at the academy, but probably a good part of sort of 3/4 of a year, I think, or half a year, and it's pretty like bang, 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 bang,
Do you remember any part of that interview process? I remember going through the draft process. You have interviews with different sort of AFL clubs, and they'll ask you really rogue questions, like ask you, you're at a shopping centre, you're going into your car, and all of a sudden you see a bloke walking out with a shopping trolley. You've never met him. What do you do? Or there was one that got asked last year of a bloke. You're stranded on a desert island. You got 5 things to take. Like, what's that got to do with football? Is there any curly questions they asked you in the interviews?
Mate, I can remember the day, but I can't remember the questions. But I remember at the time I was living with a mate of mine who was in the Navy, and we were both growing rat's tails. It was like a thing back then, and I remember that I had a rat's tail, and I just tucked it down the back of my collar and actually managed to sneak it in and get away with it. So, but as far as questions go, no, can't remember a thing of what they asked. Yeah.
So the 6 months to a year, what's that? Are you is that a testing process throughout the whole thing? Do you pass at the start and then go into that 6 months? What's it look like to get in the force, become a policeman?
Yeah, it's just a rolling sort of course. You start off learning a lot of legislation. There's a lot you got to know, and they pump it into it probably. The first couple of months are just like learning all these acts and classroom environment. I was hopeless. Put me in a classroom environment and shocking. So, but then you've got to pass exams to move on to the next stage. And progressively everyone sort of gets through, but then you go through other components of what it's like to do investigations and then like forensic stuff and driver training and then your weapons and all that stuff. So, they punch it out pretty quickly. It's a bit of a blur. And then before you know it, you're in a police car and you're out on the road.
So take us to that part. I mean, as a kid who's always wanted to be a cop, I imagine the classroom wouldn't have been fun, but getting your weapons, getting in the car, doing all this, seeing the sirens, that would have been the fun for it. What do you do when you first become? I mean, I imagine you're not going straight away to do detective stuff. It's just straight in, driving a car or being a beat cop as you hear on the TV shows. But what's your first job as in the force?
Yeah, mine was straight to the country. So I ended up in the Great Southern in a country town, and you were just straight into it. Country policing's a little bit different than that of the city. So I didn't get I think a lot of academies come out and go to the booze bus and things like that. I was straight into the country, which I love, to be honest with you, because I thought...
Where were you?
I went down to a town called Katanning, so in the Great Southern area, and managed to go down there. And, I enjoyed my footy, so I had these big, hopes of going down and playing in the country town and playing footy and being part of the community. So all that stuff was...
what's Katanning's team?
The Wanderers.
Katanning Wanderers.
Yeah, and I didn't play many games there. It was Sunday League, which was always a bit of a pickle. But, it was just good to be in a country town. But... I joined thinking it'd be magnificent. Go down and rock up in the country town and everyone will love you like the local sheriff. And I remember driving the police car on my first day and someone walking out in the road and giving me the finger. And I thought, this is not what I thought. But, I loved it down there, and I loved being in the country. It was really different. And then, back into the city after 2 years.
How long? So 2 years down the country. I remember I've done a bit of stuff throughout WA. I went to, where was I? Calbarry, and did a bit of stuff with the police up there, and as you said, it was like they know everyone, they're mates with everyone, doing some stuff around the schools, in the footy clubs, but then every town's got their rat bags and shit kickers that it's like, fuck, I know this bloke, yep, all right mate, how you going? And everyone's flipping the bird. But what I remember doing was driving in those open roads. It's just like sitting in the back of the police car and it says, right, I watch this, flick the lights, and bang, you just go 180. We were speeding without the lights on, and there was the lights behind us went on, and then the guy was like, I'll just flash mine to make sure that they know we're all right. Is that is it a bit of fun down there? Can you get away with a bit? Like, what's the life of how many people are there? Are you with down there? What's the go down in the country?
It's a small station. It's definitely different. I don't know how to explain it, but you're kind of right. Like, there's no, you're not going to go down there and break all these rules and be yahoos, but I think all country towns are quite like that, everyone pretty close knit community. So, I don't really know how to answer that, diplomatically.
That's all right. You're allowed to be diplomatic. You're allowed not to be. So you move back up to the city. What's the next step in your journey? You're 2 years in.
Yeah, 2 years in. So I was in uniform. I came back and I worked at the gang crime squad. And
gang crime squad.
Yeah, so that was dealing with the bikie groups. And I think I can't remember exactly how many years I did there, but maybe 4 or 5 years there, and that sort of got me back into the city, and then that was pretty interesting stuff.
When you say working in the gang crime squad, talk us through what that is. Are you out arresting? Are you in the office? What's the split? What's it look like from a day-to-day point of view?
Day to day, it was I was in uniform, so I wasn't a detective then. I became a detective after I left there, but so you're pretty much going out and responding to all sort of gang-related incidents, I guess, and I guess giving them a bit of a hard time and trying to keep them honest, and so that was all you were doing every day. So you weren't bouncing from job to job in the city. You were just totally focused on curbing that sort of part of serious crime, I guess they call it.
Yeah, and how long were you doing the gang crime stuff for?
Maybe about 4 or 5 years. I can't remember exactly, but probably 4 years maybe. Yeah.
And is that like is this a typical path for someone coming in? Is it straight away, for WA anyway, is it out to the country then back in to the city?
No, I think I was lucky. Because I went to a place that was a bit harder to fill, you got a bit of a preference where you could come back to.
Yeah, okay.
Otherwise I probably would have come back and just been thrown into the mix of being in any police station. But yeah, so I had a bit of a choice and managed to get in there, and I was off and gone.
So you're there for, 4 or 5 years? We're now 6, 7 years into your career. At that point, are you a detective then, or what?
Yeah, not quite.
What's your next step?
Applied for the detective training school, so from Gang Crime, and then got into that school, left Gang Crime, you do a course, and then you become a detective.
So that is, for everyone, you look at it and you think that's the cool shit. What's it for you? Is that an aspiration you had as a kid? Is it you get into policing and you think, fuck, there's my pathway to, that would be something I want to do?
Yep.
What point do you sort of think, fuck, I'm going to try and go for this?
Yeah, I knew on day one. So
Yeah.
I knew that when I went out to the bush straight away, I hated doing traffic work. That was that was not me at all, and I loved doing the investigation stuff. So I knew very early that I was going to be going down that path, and then how quickly you get to that path is sort of depend on how quickly you can get the skills, I guess. But I was keen to get amongst that as quick as I could, and like I said, go back to my dad's mate who was a detective, and that's just what I wanted to do.
So you sit back and you can tell him stories. He's telling you.
Yeah.
You look back on it. You're there for 15 years. You're now a detective. You're working through it. Does a case stand out to you? Does something stand out that you can sort of remember or pinpoint as in your time?
As far as something I investigated, or
something you investigated, something you're involved in. It might not necessarily
in those early days, or
any point, just throughout the life.
Look, I won't talk in specifics, but when you're at the gangs team, you're dealing with things like extortions and things like that. I'm so desensitized to thinking of what is good and what's not. You
see on TV, it's like, okay, WA police have seized $30 million of meth, and shit, you just blow up. But does that sort of stuff, does that happen regularly? Is that something that, maybe not $30 million of meth?
Yeah, no, it probably does. All that sort of the big drug crime and that is a big thing. And I was in on the periphery of that probably early, being at gangs and investigating that stuff. But that wasn't always what I was super keen on doing. I think probably the best place I worked at post there was Sex Assault Squad, which is like a total opposite spectrum to doing drug work, and it was back to dealing with real people, real victims, and a bit more of a sense of achievement rather than the drugs thing was a bit of a making a dent, but you can't really stop it, can you? Whereas I probably wanted to help people more. I think that's where I was wired, so I got to do all that stuff, but it didn't interest me as much as that other stuff.
So your detective work, run us through what does that look like from a point of view? I was coming from zero reference frame here. My reference frame is watching TV, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Law and Order. It's like, all right, 21 Drum Street. You could have gone undercover as a high school kid looking at you. So you look at that. It's like, what does it look like from a day to day? Are you going undercover? Are you doing, are you working a case for 6 months, 12 months, all the rest of it? Like, what is it?
It depends where you're at. Probably did a bit of everything there. Like, you are, big cases like protracted ones and drug ones obviously go for a lot longer, use a lot of resources, but also I'd worked in the districts as well, in and around the suburbs where you're just getting, these churn and burn files, people break into your house, things like that. So really dependent on where you're working, I guess.
Where you were working out of Perth CBD at the time?
No, I worked in East Metro, so out near Midland for a little bit, but predominantly, my career was in the city,
So what you do this churn and burn, you get someone stolen a bike or you get a break-in. When you have a case that is, 6 months, 12 months, are you doing other stuff on the side, or is it like, are you the guy that says, okay, this is me for 12 months, I've got my job locked away?
Mate, total opposite of that. You're doing about a million things at the same time. It's funny, mate. That job, unless you've done it, it's almost impossible to explain. Like, I could explain it to my mates that have been in the job. You go and do these crazy things, but like where I, subsequent work since leaving the police and realising, having a bit of a normal life, like I look back and just think, I don't even know how I did that. Like, just had so many balls in the air at the same time and crazy stuff,
it's not like, I'm selling a car here, I'm selling a car there. It's like, I've got someone has lost $20,000 of this. I've got someone who's stolen this. I've got someone who's beating the shit out of someone over here. There's all this sort of stuff going on. Yeah,
it is relentless. Like, by the time you get to work, by the time you finish, if you finish on time, it is just non-stop chaos. Like emails, calls, bang, 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 bang. You just get to work and you get blitzed for 8 hours if you're lucky enough to get out on time. And it's a mental job. A lot of people wouldn't understand it, and it's very difficult to explain. But like, I look back and even think to my mates now who are still in the job, and serious respect to them, because like my days now, I could have the worst day in the world and it wouldn't come within my top 500 that I had in police. Like, yeah.
So, in and amongst all this, there's other stuff that I've heard that you did. Like, we're talking, there's the Hogs footy team you were in.
Yeah.
There was some other stuff that you went and did along the line. I want to just hone back in on the Hogs footy stuff.
Yeah.
You've got because we've got, I've got mates that have played in the Fireys team.
Yep.
My older brother Will was in the army, the ad for Rams when he was going through school. And so all this sort of stuff is that external to it? Are you sort of like, shit, this is a way for me to get a week off work and I'm going to go and play some footy?
That's just when you meet your people. Like when I joined the police, I was like, I liked the job, I loved it. But then I met the police footy people and I was like, no,
this is it.
This is me.
So what's it look like? Are you going, are you playing other police squads? Are you playing the Ambos, the Fireys?
Did both, actually. I was lucky, you go a carnival every year.
Yep.
So going to different.
How'd we
go? The years I was there, unfortunately, we were terrible.
That hurts.
But they've won a couple of carnivals. The Vics obviously go pretty good. The South Australians go very good. But yeah, Tassie, New South Wales, Queensland, everyone goes away for a week. But you play 3 games of footy in 5 days, and mate, drinking every night.
Yeah.
I reckon the most dangerous position I was ever in police was on a Thursday night, standing outside a nightclub. I think I was smoking a menthol cigarette for some reason and thinking,
there's nothing better.
I've got to play footy in 3 hours. But unreal trips, real good tight bond. You get tight bonds in the job, but the bonds with the people you play sport with, it takes it to another level, I reckon.
Where did Zebra come from?
That's
your nickname off the back of the Hogs crew?
They said I can't change my stripes, so I don't know how to interpret that. But everyone gets an animal name, so I think every single person in the club has one.
Is that sort of indicative of the culture of police, or is it more so the culture of that Hogs footy team?
Just I don't think any other states decided to call themselves by animal names, but I think just the culture of that camaraderie within, which is a strong thing. Like I'm out of the job now, but I still catch up with all those guys and have a great laugh. It's it's a strong culture, really. It's good. It's a good escape from the job, even though you're within. It's some of the best memories I had were doing that stuff. It was magnificent.
Do you put work on hold for the 5 days when you're away?
You can never
do too much if you're 5 days on the cans.
You can never put work away in that job, and that's one thing about it that follows you everywhere. You might be away for a week, but there's guys that can't, will prep to go away a week, and then you get a court date. Yeah, you're stuck. Unless you want to go over and get a bench warrant, you got to go to court. So, the job never stops. But those, if you're able to get away and you decompress a bit, magnificent.
Good fun. So Zebra's one nickname. Everyone has an animal nickname. Bruno's another one that I've heard thrown around. Now, where's that come from? Can you give us the origin of that, or is that is that behind enemy lines we can't talk about?
That's behind enemy lines. It is a very, very funny story, but I categorically can't tell it. I'll tell you after. Yeah, it's not like it's not anything like methodology wise or that, but it's it's probably not ideal to tell that one here.
No, that's fair enough, mate. So you go through your 15 years. You sort of. How long was the detective phase of it? And is there anything after that, or is it just detective and then you decide I'm done?
Well, I mean, once you get your detective, you're in. But then, I was a detective, went to bounce around to a few different spots. Then I got promoted.
Yep.
So promotion was you basically apply, have an interview, got promoted to sergeant, and then you basically get told where to go. So I was a detective at that time, but I was told to go back to uniform. So I went back and worked at a police station for a couple of years, and then after that, that's when I left. Yeah.
So a day-to-day in all these situations, you go back, you're a sergeant of a police, you're in your uniform again. What's your day-to-day there? Are you out on are you walking around town? Are you bossing people around? Do you have people that are reporting to you? Is it different every day?
Yeah, I had a team reporting to me.
Yeah.
Absolute absolute legends. A lot of like young people straight out of the academy, and but I worked in a police station which was hectic busy, and I'd been probably in a position before that where I'd been in these pretty good areas. That was a kick back to reality, going back to uniform. I'd never worked night shift until I got promoted.
Where was this?
This was in Cannington.
Yeah.
And like a crazy busy police station where like it's probably that police station where like people don't want to go to the city because I think it's busy.
Yep.
Armadale's probably a bit too far south, so everyone just loves it.
Comes here. Yeah.
I was in there majority of the time as a sergeant while your team are out on the road doing the jobs, and you just manage the police station, which is chaos.
What's happening in there? Is there lock up? Is there people that are coming in and it's like, okay, we've got to process you here and do this? What's
everything? He just doesn't stop. Yeah, all of that. Like, we had a lock up there, so people would just lob up with arrests and things like that. So then you get to watch cells, and you're the lockup manager, and then you got your front counter, so people can come through there and report crimes, and then you've got your staff who just basically come in, out you get in a car, and away you go, and it's just mental. Like, it's hard to explain, really.
If it's mental, it's mental all the time. But is there anything that you sort of sticks out that's like funny, or you look back on it now and think, fuck, how did I get through that night or that incident, or did something, did the fucking power go out and was it stinking hot, and did everyone, is there anything like that sticks out to you across the way?
It's funny when you mention power going out. This is not like a crazy funny story or anything, but like I said, I'd never done night shift, right? Yep. So I don't know if you ever have, but like I just could not sleep. So I'd do, like, you do 4 night shifts in a row, but like I'd go to bed at 7:30 in the morning and wake up at 10 to think I've had 10 hours sleep, and just couldn't sleep. So then I was going back to work. So by day 3, it's like you're starting to go nuts, right? And I remember being in the police station, and it was in the middle of summer. It was stinking hot, and I was in there on my own. And like 3:30 in the morning, I was on about my 10th can of Coke, and just to stay awake. And the doorbell rang, and I went out to the front counter, and these 2 people came in, and they were holding like, I reckon this baby, it was 3 weeks old, and they looked like pretty normal sort of looking family, and they came in and they looked pretty worried, and I thought, I reckon their house has been broken into or something. They've come down here. And so I went to the counter. I said, what's happened? And they said, we need to report some paranormal activity in our house. And I said, and I'd done night shifts. I was starting to go loopy. And I said, can you say that again? And the bloke said, look, we've got some paranormal activity in my house. I said, well, run me through it, mate. What's going on? And he said, well, our lights have been flickering all night. Yep. And our aircon keeps going off. And it's weird. And I said, mate, have you spoken to a Sparky? He goes, I didn't actually think of that, and walked out. And that's kind of what you get. Like, you get people just coming in with all these random weird stuff, and that became normal.
Mate, I had a night, I was living in my old house, and I had a night where I thought I was having paranormal activity. It was either that or someone broke into the house.
I could have solved it.
Footsteps up, it was upstairs, footsteps coming downstairs. I called out, no one answered. Text my mates, no one was at home. Yeah. Footsteps got pretty close, called out and asked if anyone was there. The footsteps walked back, didn't hear any doors open. I went, and first I grabbed the knife, and I was like, I'm not going to stab anyone. Like,
very aggressive.
Why would I do that? I then grabbed the pot pan, the pan, and sort of walked through the house, and I was like, no one's here. Nothing got stolen. And then, I'm just thinking either someone's left very quietly on in here, or I've got paranormal activity. So I probably should have called up I don't know why I didn't call the police, because I left the house and I was like, if someone's broken in, then that was pretty silly of me to just fucking leave it and walk out.
Yeah, nah, mate, you should have come down. I would have taken your call.
So, so you've got paranormal activity, you got all this sort of stuff. What, like, in terms of your actual out on the field sort of thing, you've got, you're solving cases, you're doing all this sort of stuff. Is there something that sticks out as like an achievement, or something you're most proud of either getting done or being a part of helping, or that you can look back on and say, fuck, I mean, I was involved in that in some positive aspect?
Probably a lot of stuff. Like, but again, like, sometimes you're involved in these massive, like, massive jobs which get a lot of media and stuff like that, but they didn't really give you the self-achievement.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of stuff, like I said before, in relation to, it wasn't so much the stuff that you'd see in the media, but helping domestic violence victims was a big one,
Yep.
you know, and helping sex assault victims was a big one, or kids and stuff like that. So it got personal achievement, but it was not stuff I'd have really ever spoken about. But, you know, when, you know, people tell you you've had a positive impact on your life, that's a pretty good thing. That's enough for me.
What was the first one? What was the first tick you had in your column? What was the first win you had? In down there in Katanning.
Yeah, down there in Katanning. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was like seconded into a detective's office, and
brilliant.
My sergeant was away, so I was like the one man. Then I thought I was a sheriff. I had no idea what I was doing, but and there was a sex assault. And really, it was a very much a case of one word against another type thing, and managed to interview this person, and he just coughed the whole thing. So, which is like a pretty good thing in police, where someone so because without that, there would have been no evidence. Guy wouldn't have got locked up. So, that struck the ego pretty early. I thought I was pretty hot after that, and so that one sticks out. But again. It goes back to just helping, I guess. Yeah.
Is there ones, obviously, like you've got this guy who's coughed up and it's he said, she said, but he's given it away. So, yes, there's the win. I imagine you would have had heaps across the journey that are, I've got a pretty good feeling you did it, mate, but I can't pin it. You've got no...
Yeah.
Does that anything stick out as like, I mean, you don't have to give any specifics, but is there, or name names, but is there something that you go, if I was to put my chips in, it would be that's what happened.
Yep.
But you can't, innocent until proven guilty and beyond reasonable doubt and all that sort of stuff. Is there something that sticks out as that as being,
Yeah, a couple of those. Like I worked at armed robbery squad for a while, and I remember having a case like that where, a bloke had done these horrific robberies, and I knew it was him, but not enough evidence. But you kind of like, you become a dog with a bone. Like you sort of go, it becomes... like a bit of a competition, so I was always something that probably chased every rabbit down every hole, sometimes to my detriment. But, so when you come up short, you take a bit of a hit. But, I was lucky. I had a pretty lucky career, I think, in that regard. Like,
is that something that, if you've got, I don't know how many people you got in your team, or if there's, 5 or 6 of you there, you've got that one. Do they all look and think, I know he did it, or I know she did it, I know that's what happened, but just unlucky?
I guess a little bit of that. Like, everyone's there. Like, police are very measured in the way they do their thing. So and I guess I don't think I ever really was in a position where people were like ever flat about it. You either had enough evidence or you didn't. There was none of this like arrest people and throw it up and hope for a win.
Yeah,
it's one good part of the job, I guess, but it's also one bad part of the job. How would I explain that? I've just lost my train of thought, Hammer.
So we're talking about a guy who, you're trying to pin something on someone, you think he's done it, but you can't find the evidence. You're a dog at a bone. What's the feeling when you don't, when you think you've got him or you think you've got her, and you just can't put the evidence together?
I get it. That job's so chaotic. It's almost like you're just so wired to think like it's over, can't dwell on it, on to the next one, because there's hundreds waiting for you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's like. I think, like I said, if you went and did everything you possibly could to try and solve it, you walked away thinking, well, what more could I have done? So I never had any lingering feelings like that. But it's just, it moves so fast, mate. Like,
is it something you can go back to, like, open, or you hear, if I'm being wrong in my terminology, hit me, because I'm going with just movie stuff, opening a cold case, is that something that you can do if you've something else has popped up out of nowhere, I can go back to this guy? Did you ever do something like that?
I never did, but they do. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess like Claremont is a great one in that regard, because enormous outcome, and I think even I thought I had nothing to do with that, but even I thought that would probably never be solved, as a lot of other people did. So cold case, there is a cold case homicide team.
Yep.
And they do a lot of other things as well, but I can't account for what they do, but they've had some incredible results, and forensic things have changed over the years too, and opportunities and things like that. But good place to work. I probably should have gone there, actually.
So what would that be like? I know you didn't work there, but if something happens, 25 years ago that's dead, and it's a case that's been shut for 15 years, and it's these guys' job to go back and try and figure it out. Like, how the fuck are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, police record everything, but like things have changed over the years and how things are recorded. So, yeah, it'd be hard work. I would imagine it's like getting something and getting a job and someone just throwing all the papers in the air and like you got to put it together like a jigsaw. It's not easy, and but I think it's progressively got a lot better over the years because of, like I said, things forensically recorded differently. Everything's recorded electronically now. You're not trawling through mountains of documents with handwritten notes that you can't even understand, or but I'm probably not the best to answer in that regard. Like, I've sort of just been
better than me.
Better
than me. Did that change over your time in the force? That method of recording, your availability of technology? Did you find that over your 15 years that sort of changed the job for you?
It changed the job, definitely, but a lot in a good way, I think.
Yeah.
Like, when I joined the job, I think it was more of a case of the phone would ring, you just get in the car and go and do the job. It's not quite like that now.
Yeah.
Everything's recorded, and even the guys, they wear cameras, so everywhere you go, you can people can dial into those cameras and see what you are and what you're doing, and it's quite, it's pretty intrusive, but it's a good thing, right? And it's good for safety, and I only saw positives out of that. When the cameras were coming out, everyone was a bit, I guess, worried about that, but and I was there when they just came out, but I saw it as a good thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't see it as much here, but you see it heaps in America where people are just, someone's pulled over by a cop, first thing they do is pull your phone out and record it. And that's, you've got your own version of events there. So I can't imagine that would be a bad thing. Have you, what's a situation in your, you don't have to answer, but what's a situation in your policing career that, have you found yourself in one where it's like, fuck, things, this is at a steady state with either a, civilian or someone you're going after, and then all of a sudden it's escalated to a point where you're like, fuck, this is, this is pretty hectic. Do you remember anything like that, or you don't have to say?
I was pretty lucky in a sense, in a weird way. Like, I never used any of my accoutrements, so I never battened anyone or sprayed anyone or tasered anyone or anything like that. Probably, I think, in that regard, I've been in a few pretty wild police chases, like on the road, cars. Yeah. And I remember being at Gang Crime, and I was still pretty junior then, and I was passenger in the car, and we were going to look for this bloke, and he was at a like a motel sort of thing on Albany Highway, sort of down near Cannington actually. Yep. And we were just looking to see if he was in there, but as we came into the car park, he was coming out in his car, and so we thought, game on. So we've turned to chase him, had this pretty gnarly chase through the streets. I'm trying to call this chase on the radio. I'd never called one before. It was the worst call you've ever heard in your life. I had mates texting me like, what are you even talking about? Right? I don't think anyone knew where we were. Yeah. But it culminated in, somehow we got back to the car park where we started. I don't know how we got back there. It's a blur. And then, have you ever had one of those dreams where you're like playing footy and you go to kick the footy and you can't kick the footy?
Absolutely. I have them all the time. I had a recurring nightmare growing up that I was running away from Big Bird. Weird, but I was running away from Big Bird, and I would hear a clock ticking in my house, and my old house had stairs going up, and I would hear this clock, and I'd see Big Bird, and I'd start running up the stairs, and I would be running, and I'd get towards the end, and these spikes would start coming through my feet, and I couldn't run, couldn't lift my foot, turned around, the clock ticked faster and faster and faster to the point where it was turned around, Big Bird was there, and I'd just fall out and wake up. Ended up pissing my pants every time. So, but yeah, that's I've had those sort of nightmares.
Mine's pretty similar. No, mine's not that similar to that, but it's very funny. So I was stuck in my seatbelt, so I just didn't know what was going on. And what happened is this bloke dumped his car, and he was off, gone. Yep. But I'm like, I had a bit of white line fever playing footy, and I was like, get him, get him. But I was stuck in my seatbelt, so I was sort of became like the stall gift. I gave him a 20-metre handicap, and at that time as well, you just had they just released like thigh holsters, so it was like, and I was reasonably fit at that time, and but this bloke was off and gone, and so I got out of the car eventually after I got my seatbelt off for 50 attempts, and we both ran. He just banged straight across Albany Highway, almost got hit by a car, missed him by that much, and I blinkers on straight over as well. I almost got hit by a car that much, and then I went out the blocks. I got out the blocks too early and went a bit too hard, too fast. So I reckon I would have caught him. And I started running about 50 metres in, because you're in boots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're not in running shoes. And I had this bloody gun on my leg, and I got the wobbles big time. But I had my the guy, he allegedly had a gun. So I had my gun out. So I ran across Albany Highway with my gun out, and then it's like I got a stitch in my leg, and I stacked it, and my gun just went like sliding down the road. And I just watched this bloke sort of run off into the distance, and
oh my goodness,
I had to walk back on the road, get my gun, and then chase him again. But the horse had bolted. But just as I had my moment to arrest him, one of my other teammates sort of came around the other end of the block and arrested him. So I didn't get my chance at revenge. But
you got him in the end.
We got him in the end, but I made a bit of I almost killed myself, and which you look back now and I think like the car would have missed me by 1 millimetre, I think, and I just didn't even see it, didn't even think about it, just was focused and
shit.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's like.
So that is fucked.
Yeah, I was lucky not to lose my gun. I think that's a car run over it or something.
Yeah. So you're in the chase. This interests me. You're in a car chase and you're going. I imagine it is quick. You're swerving corners. Like the traffic. Being a policeman or a policewoman in traffic has always intrigued me. What's it like actually in that situation? Because people try and get out of the way, but people aren't always fucking doing what Mate, you're on the roads. It's tough.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Like it's worse as a passenger. Like when you're in actually control of the car, you sort of you know what's going on. But when you're sitting there like I was with the seatbelt stuck on and didn't even know what direction I was pointing, it was it's dangerous. And the weird thing is, and it happens to me now. You're sort of driving down the road and you hear lights and you think where are they coming from? People don't know what to do. Yeah. So they panic as well, or so yeah, it is. Yeah, it's super dangerous. I actually, I didn't really like the chasing part of it. Adrenaline rush through the roof, but for me, it was just a super dangerous part of the job.
So what's the call? What's the call like? How is it? Are you commentating a horse race? Are you telling him, hey, we're here, he's going this way? What are you trying? I mean, I know it was your first one, and you reckon you mucked it up, but what are you trying to convey?
Oh, you're trying to tell everyone where you are, so they know, so they can come and help you. Really.
And how did you get that wrong?
But just I think pure adrenaline, and because I grew up in a different state, I didn't know where I was half the time. So, and when something happens like that, split second, then you got to tell everyone, and I'm like, I don't even know what bloody suburb we're in. Yeah, so I'm trying to blab out this.
He's gone left. What street? Fucking I don't know.
Mate,
he's just left.
Exactly.
He's just gone left.
He's going north. He's probably going south. Yeah, all of that. It's like it is a crazy environment. Some people do it really well, and as I got through the job, I got a lot better at that. Yeah, because you get a lot calmer and all that. But it's
how early on in your career was that chase?
Early, probably third year in, I reckon. Yeah, and because I'd been in the country, we'd never really chase anyone in the country. No, and so I came back to the city, and it was just that kind of stuff happens every day.
Yeah, shit. Yeah. So. You mentioned in there Taser. Now, I put out a questionnaire. I put out a thing to our listeners at the start of the day. Got a cop coming on. Any questions? Blah, 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 blah. We had a few, and we'll get to them a little bit later. One that did come up was the Taser situation. And you said you dropped your gun and all the rest of it, and that would be pretty tough if that accidentally went off on yourself. Have you accidentally ever tasered yourself?
No. Accidentally,
or have you on purposely?
It's pretty hard to do it accidentally.
You've purposely tasered yourself?
Nah, I can't remember. It's a long time ago. But no, I think when they came out, it was this new thing, and I remember doing a course, and you actually, it was a bit like when you went through the academy, you got pepper sprayed. Right? I'd never been pepper sprayed before. That was pretty gnarly.
Okay.
I'll go and talk about the taser thing in a sec, but
hit me with the pepper spray. We're here.
Oh well, they
don't actually hit me with it. I
don't know if they still do it, but they did then. And they said, so you basically get pepper sprayed, and some people recover straight away, and other people recover for takes hours. Yeah. I was unfortunately one of those that took bloody hours. So I remember getting sprayed at the academy, falling over, dislocating my shoulder, came back in, couldn't see for about 3 hours. Drove home that is the worst feeling, like pepper spray. And then but the taser thing, it's when they first came out, because the pepper spray, you can get secondary spray. If you or me go to a job and someone sprays you, you can get sprayed by accident.
Yep.
Tasers, when they first came out, you didn't really necessarily get tasered, but I'd done a course where you got to feel what it was like, and not like the actual... There's prongs, there's like a cartridge that goes on the end and they come out and they prong. We didn't do that, but you could take them out, take the cartridge off, and becomes what they call a drive stun, which is a bit, it's like a cattle prod
really. Sort of thing.
So I did that on a course and it felt like that, and it's like being bitten by a dog, I guess is the best way to explain it. It absolutely hurts, but I never got the full, throughout the whole body
experience. I remember I've grabbed by accident an electric fence trying to climb over it and felt like I was kicked in the guts by a horse.
Yes. No,
like it fucking whacked me.
It's about 1,000,000 times worse than that, I reckon.
Brilliant.
And so with the course I did, where you could sort of, you get tasered and see what it feels like, and I remember like I was bending over getting something out of the desk and someone tasered me in the arse and I hit my head on the wall and chipped my teeth. But like it was,
Have you ever had to? I mean, it's obviously better than having to shoot someone. Have you had to deploy the taser out in the field?
Never did. No, never. Like I said, never deployed anything.
Yeah.
Don't have any real cool stories, but that's kind
of probably better than having them.
Yeah, definitely. It was. Yeah, very lucky in that regard.
So you're all right. Well, we've had some chases, we've had some tasers. At this point, we're 12 years in. We're working through. You're back end. You're a sergeant. From there, what sort of is there any? Because my older brother's in the military, and you can go. There's. I know all about the ranks there. What are the ranks? What are the ranks in your line of work, and where did you sort of get to? And was there a sort of a fork in the road where it was I can keep doing this and go to this level, or I can sort of peel off and stay where I am and then move into a different career?
Yeah, I got to sergeant, which is probably your third rank up, I guess.
Yep.
First class constable, then you go to senior constable. They're sort of automatic years, and then you got to apply to get to sergeant. So that's as high as I got.
Yep.
But sergeant, I guess you're still out and about on the tools, a bit like a tradie. Then you can apply to go to senior sergeant, which I never did, but that would be like more managing a police station and things like that. And then after that, inspector, superintendent, it goes up and
is it the higher you go up, the more withdrawn you are from actual field stuff? Is that?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit of that?
Yeah, definitely a bit of that. Yeah. So which is not necessarily a bad thing though, because I think that the on-field stuff is good and it can be fun, but it's bloody stressful and it's full on, and I think at some point you sort of got to get out of that and do something else for your own sanity, I reckon.
Yeah.
But I never got that far. So I was still heavily on the tools when I left.
Yeah. Did the family come into it? And have you got a family?
Yeah, I got a family. Yeah.
Is that what sort of lent you to steer out of that part of your life?
A little bit. Yeah. I think, like I said to you, I like night shift and stuff like that, it was no good for me at all.
Yeah.
I just couldn't get going. It was like that sort of last 2 years doing that. It even feels like a blur. It's like it didn't even happen. It's like I was, stuck in a bloody video game or something.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I started to think like I don't want to be doing this when I'm 55, and that can happen. Because there's a bit of bureaucracy, I guess, with tenure in police as well, and bouncing around. And some people loved that because you got to go to a different place and work here and then go and work there. But I was pretty happy to find somewhere and want to stay there, but you couldn't really do that. So, I sort of started looking at it. I always thought I'd stay in the job for the rest of my life, and that just changed a little bit. No regrets or anything like that. I loved it. The job was very good to me, but I was thinking longer term, I think.
Yeah. So the night shift stuff, is that like you can't be doing nights forever. What's your night shift? Is it like FIFO stuff where you sort of have a swing? Is that what police work is like? Are you on 4 days off 2, or what's your setup?
Oh, it's a roster. But yeah, part of it is, I think I remember my roster a little bit, like but you'd do 4 night shifts and then you'd have like 3 days off, but then you'd go back on a day shift. Yeah. So that adjustment was like
tough. Jet lagged every second of the day.
It was like being drunk for 2 weeks, and that's probably like, so we're just running on fumes, I found, and then you sort of go to afternoon shifts and then a few of those, and then a couple of weekends, and before you knew it, you're back on night shift.
You think when you look at television and portrayal of police, it's a lot of a big part of it is the culture, and like you go and have a beer afterwards, and the heavy drinking culture. But it's I think in terms of football stuff, relating it to police, the culture of like you speak about all your mates that you've had that you still keep in touch with. Like I still keep in touch with mates that I played under 13s footy with.
Yeah.
Is that like you don't need to be going out and having a million beers after every shift you have, but is the culture of sort of like you work together, you go and have a drink, you enjoy yourself, and then you sort of you build friendships that way. Is that sort of similar? Do you relate it to football at all growing up, or is that sort of similar?
Absolutely you do. Like I think because you achieve things with some people, and like I said to you before, there's things you do in police where just no one else would even get it. Like for me to explain it to even my family it's impossible because you can't. So you build these camaraderie by going to these really wacko things and thinking, did that really just happen? You know. So there is a little bit of that. And I still catch up. Like I caught up with some guys that I was at a unit with only a couple of weeks ago, just for a beer, and it's magnificent. Like just to catch up with them and have a beer, and some of them are still within the job, and that's no different to catching up with guys that you played footy with or whatever. And so you spend a lot of time together. You know, I think it's like a 40-hour week, but when reality hits, you're probably doing 50-hour weeks at a minimum. Yeah.
And is it the same roster of guys? Like you say, you're on for 4 nights here and then 3 days and then you're in a day shift?
Yeah.
Are you doing that with the same guys and girls the whole way through?
Yeah, you are. And everywhere you go to, like you might work at one place and then you move on to the next one. It's like going to a different footy club and then you hang out with those people and, you know, like, so you do bounce around in that regard. Yeah.
So you get to the end of your 15 years, you've sort of parked the police, you moved on. Looking back at it now, it's how long have you been out of the job? 5, I reckon. 5 years.
Coming close to, yeah.
You're looking back on the job now, like what's something you miss? Probably, what's the biggest thing you miss from it?
Oh, tough question. People, I think, like because you just met some of the most incredible people you'll ever meet in your life, and I would say, like for me, I don't miss certain aspects of the job, but like like it was so good to me, you know, like but like that. I don't really know how to explain it because I'm when I left, I know some people have different transitions. But 14 years was probably, I wasn't too entrenched, or 15 years. Yeah. So I managed to move away pretty easily and find something else and move on. I just like, there's some of the best people you ever meet in your life in that job, and like the how hard they work, and you know all the stuff that you wouldn't know is pretty phenomenal. So that part of it, I think, because you don't get to see them that often. You know, it's like you move work. Yeah. And now I spend all day with the people I work with now, and life's busy, right? So,
well, I think when you say this, people wouldn't get it. I sort of understand. Well, I don't really get it from your aspect, but I relate. I think about this all the time. My girlfriend, I went on footy trip last year. Yeah. My girlfriend hated the idea of me going away on a footy trip, and to try and explain to her the idea behind having spent a whole year doing this, you've been training, you blah, 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 and you just go with the 40 boys and let your hair down for 3 days. Yeah. You're not doing anything other than just sort of enjoying your time with those guys doing fun. Like, a bit of stupid shit, but you like the idea behind that, I feel like a lot of people don't get. And I'm just sort of listening to you say, there's stuff that you sort of can only bond with over the people that are doing it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm sort of thinking. Like, there's some things in football that, like, you sound pompous, you sound arrogant, you sound dumb when you talk about it, but it really is. Unless you've been in it, unless you've been doing it with the other people, you just don't get it.
No, that's right. And I probably got the best of that because you got to be in the police and got to hang out with the police guys, which was like a level up for me. So, I loved all that part of it. So that's probably is one thing you do miss, and one thing I won't get again. But it's a bit like I don't play footy anymore either. You know, that kind of stuff comes to an end. So. Sad in some regards, but there's other aspects of life that come in, and that's probably where I'm at now.
Mate, Hodge, that's very interesting. There's a lot of shit in there that you don't really get to hear firsthand, and thank you very much for sharing. I did, as I mentioned, I put it out earlier to ask the audience, and I said, righto, everyone, we've got a cop coming on tonight, ask away. There was a couple of overwhelming questions, one of which I wanted to ask that wasn't on there. for a long time I've heard this rumour or this thing that police have quotas for traffic. Police have got, you've got to get a certain amount of fines, you've got to get a certain amount of traffic, a certain amount of speeding tickets, certain amount of breatho pullovers. And like, I look at that from my point of view and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, what if we live in a perfect world where everyone drives safe? How can you possibly pull everyone over and give all these fines? That can't exist, can it? Quotas for traffic cops and those sort of police, or are we?
I never worked in traffic. It never interested me, right?
Towing the company
and
line.
it's a probably. I'll be careful in how I answer this because traffic's a beast, right? Like a lot road deaths are out of control.
Yep.
So it needs to be policed.
It does,
but it's discretionary. Like, I didn't give out a lot of tickets in 15 years. That was me.
Respect the shit out of that.
But I found that, especially being in the country or doing things like that, I found that sometimes when you pull someone over and you have a legitimate conversation with them, they sort of stop. You know, if they're speeding a little bit, it's happened to me, and you get pulled over and you don't speed for a while. Yeah. So whether it's right or wrong, I was probably moulded like that, and you never got criticised for that. As far as quotas go, not the best person to answer. Okay. I don't know. I think I never got involved in those discussions really, and I never put myself in a position where I was doing that work. So I think the answer would be no. Though, like, you don't get measured on that. I think they would look at statistics and all that as they should. Yep. But I was never told ever you need to go out and get tickets.
Get this many tickets.
Not once, because you wouldn't have got them.
Yeah, and I think from an ethics standpoint, you can't be, if you're being told to manufacture crime, essentially. If it's a perfect world and no one's speeding, well then no one's speeding. Anyway, I like that. The other one we got a lot of was what, if any, have you watched from a police television or movie point of view? What is the most ridiculous? What's the most ridiculous and far-fetched portrayal of what your line of work was? And is there any accurate depictions of it anywhere?
Asking the worst person.
You're not a TV movie guy?
The worst. Just can't even answer that. I don't watch any of it. Even police shows come on now, and I just don't even have any interest in it. So, sorry, mate.
No, that's fair enough. That's for all those who ask. That's sucked in. Now, the last one before we wrap things up. The last one, and this got asked more than any other question from our BackChat listeners. If you had the uniform on and were walking around the streets of, I think it was Wildlands, and you saw Ruben Ginbey pissing in public, how are you handling that? Are you fining the boy? Are you arresting him? Are you sending him to court? What are you doing in this situation? Because we've had Ruben is one of our favourite sons here at BackChat, and he was fined for urinating in public, which is illegal. Yeah. How are you handling that situation?
Geez, tough one. He's a big unit. Look.
Because people spew in public all the time.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it.
Is that illegal? Can you spew in public? I know public intoxication is frowned upon, is it? Like
disorderly conduct type thing. What actually happened with him, though? Because I actually didn't even read the story.
So he was pissing in on a fence. The toilet cubicles were full, and he was pissed at an event and was weeing on the fence. And I think the cop came and asked him for his name. And he is as straight as 6 o'clock. He's never done anything wrong, would have panicked in the situation and would have thought, oh, shit, I'm pretty recognisable here, and didn't give his name. Yeah. And then got pressed again, didn't give his name, and then was like, righto, mate, this is, now you've escalated it, and I think he's just settled in for $1,000 for something fine in court. Yeah, okay. Not the other day.
Without being there, hard to know. Like, you don't know if there's, like, the things you don't know is, and they're probably not in this scenario, but is there kids around, his mum walking the pram, and
it's a Wildlands festival, so I can't imagine not many prams being walked.
No, it might have just been in the carrier.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, the only way I can answer that is I never arrested anyone for urinating in public.
Yeah. Is there sort of stuff like, you can be a stickler for the rules, but as you said there, you're working a country job, someone's doing 5Ks over, you say, mate, settle down. Yeah. Are you turning an eye to sort of some things and picking your priorities as a cop?
No, it's...
Not turning a blind eye is probably not the right way to put it. But
no, but I guess it's really, you got to be in that situation and know how to deal with it. So you just judge, you you just got to back whoever's there in to make the right call. And without being there, mate, I just can't comment.
Hodgie would not have arrested Ruben, is what we're getting at here. The boy would have been set free.
I wouldn't have arrested him, but I probably would have tackled him.
Yeah, fair.
No, and
I think he would have respected that.
Holding the footy, get the free, go back and kick it.
Holding the balls, plural. Mate, thank you very much for coming in.
It's all good.
I know things were meant to be a little bit different on the couch, and we've had a last minute change, and you've been exceptional. Thank you that way over there for pulling out at the last minute.
Absolutely.
But mate, it was it's such an interesting. I think that's the whole point of what I'm trying to do here this year, is to talk to people from all walks of life and get perspectives and things that you wouldn't otherwise get. But it's been fun.
No, good on you, Hammer. No, I appreciate it, mate.
It's
been fun. So thanks for having me on.
Anyone has anything that they would like, anyone has any comments, any things, feel free to hit us afterwards. But mate, I thoroughly enjoyed that, and it's been a pleasure.
Wicked.
Thank you, Hodgie.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.